highway stretched black and empty under a sky so clear, the stars looked sharp enough to cut. Jake Thompson had been driving for hours, radio dead, only the low growl of his pickup's engine keeping him company. The fuel gauge needle hovered just above empty when the Route 7 fuel stop appeared. A lonely rectangle of yellow light punched into the dark like someone had torn a hole in the night. The neon sign to Route 7 stuttered violently, 3 seconds on, 1 second off, over and over. Each blackout made a dry electrical snap that seemed to travel along the power lines and into Jake's teeth. He pulled in slowly. Gravel popped under the tires like small bones breaking. No other vehicles, no wind. The pumps stood silent, hoses hanging limp like dead snakes. He killed the engine. The sudden quiet was worse than the road noise, thick, pressing silence that made his own breathing sound loud and wrong. He stepped out. The air smelled of spilled diesel and something older, something that had been rotting under the ground for a very long time. He jammed the nozzle into the tank. The pump clicked and started its slow, rhythmic glug. 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 That's when the scratching began. It came from inside the store, low on the wall closest to him, not frantic, deliberate. One long, slow scrape. A 3-second pause. Another scrape. Another pause. Each drag sounded wetter than the last, as though whatever was making it was leaving something behind. Saliva, blood, so something thicker. And with every scrape it moved, just a few inches, toward the corner of the building nearest the pump. Jake's eyes flicked to the glass door. Harlan stood behind the counter in the dim store light. The old man's posture was wrong. Shoulders hunched forward, head tilted so far sideways that his ear nearly touched his shoulder. His mouth hung open. A thin black thread, too dark to be smoke, rose slowly from between his teeth and drifted upward in lazy spirals, pooling against the ceiling like spilled ink. Jake's hand tightened on the pump handle. The tank clicked full. Gasoline sloshed over the side and ran across his boot. He didn't wipe it off. He forced himself to walk toward the store, each step louder than it should have been on the cracked concrete. The bell above the door didn't jingle. It let out one long, rusty groan that vibrated in his chest. Inside, the single fluorescent tube above the register flickered like a dying heartbeat. The smell hit him harder now. Motor oil, stale coffee, and that copper penny reek, warm and fresh. The countertop was covered in fresh gouges, some so deep the wood curled upward in splinters. A few of the gouges still glistened. Harlan hadn't moved. His head remained cocked at that impossible angle. His eyes were rolled so far back only the whites showed, streaked with thin red veins. "You hear that scratching?" Jake asked. His voice sounded small. Harlan's neck gave a wet, grinding pop as his head snapped upright. The motion was too fast, too mechanical. His pupils slid down slowly until they locked on Jake. When he spoke, the voice didn't come only from his mouth. It came from the walls, from under the floor, from inside Jake's own head. "It's not scratching," Harlan whispered. "It's measuring. It knows exactly how many steps it takes you to reach the door, how many breaths you have left before you turn your back." The scratching suddenly multiplied. Dozens, maybe hundreds of nails raking the wood at once, frantic, overlapping, a chorus of hunger. Something enormous slammed against the storeroom door from the inside. The whole wall shuddered. Dust sifted from the ceiling tiles and drifted down like gray snow. One of the overhead bulbs popped and went dark. Jake took a step backward. His boot heel caught the door threshold. Harlan's mouth stretched wider, lips peeling back until the corners split. The black thread thickened into a writhing tendril that lashed upward and wrapped around the remaining light fixture. The bulb exploded in a shower of glass and sparks. Darkness swallowed everything except the red glow of the exit sign above the door. In that red half-light, Jake saw it. Harlan's silhouette stretching taller, limbs elongating, joints bending in directions that made no anatomical sense. The thing that used to be Harlan lifted one too long arm and pointed, slowly, deliberately, at the door behind Jake. The scratching became a roar of claws tearing wood. Jake turned and ran. He didn't stop until he was inside the truck, doors locked, engine screaming. He floored it. In the rearview mirror, the sign flickered one final time, and for that single frozen heartbeat, the silhouette outside wasn't human anymore. It stood twice as tall, limbs dangling to its knees, head lolling sideways like a broken marionette. Its eyes weren't reflecting the neon, they were generating it. Two pulsing red holes that bored straight through the glass, straight through the back of Jake's skull. He drove until the sun rose, some windows down, radio blasting anything to drown the silence. He still lives in the same house. Every night before he sleeps, he checks the floorboards, running his fingers along the seams, listening. Because on the quietest nights, when the world outside is holding its breath, he hears it again. Slow, patient, wet, scraping, directly beneath where he lies, counting the seconds until he finally has to get up and step onto the floor one more time. Story 2. The Child's Voice. Doubled length. Sarah Jenkins kept the windows cracked, even though the night air was cold enough to sting. She'd been driving since noon, radio off, only the soft hiss of tires on asphalt and the occasional bump of a pothole to keep her awake. The moon hung low and swollen, orange-red, like it had been dipped in rust. Her fuel light had been blinking for 20 miles when the GPS finally chirped, Route 7 fuel stop. 0.8 miles. She coasted in under the broken sign, RTE7FLTOP. Half the neon tubes were dead. The remaining letters flickered weakly, casting sickly pink and green pulses across the empty lot. One pump still worked. The middle one, hose dangling, nozzle dripping in slow, deliberate drops. She stepped out. The cold didn't feel like normal cold. It crawled under her jacket, pressed against her ribs. No wind moved the hoses, no insects chirped. Just the drip, drip, drip of gasoline hitting concrete. A rhythm too slow, too regular, like a heartbeat counting down. Inside, the bell above the door gave one choked metallic clank and fell silent. Harlan stood behind the counter, hands flat on the wood. His fingernails were long, black, and cracked down the middle like they'd been split with something sharp. His eyes didn't track her. They stared at a point just above her head. Sarah grabbed a soda from the cooler. The glass was colder than it should have been, almost painful against her palm. She started down the candy aisle. Then the voice came. Small, trembling, so close it felt like breath against the back of her left ear. "Mommy, it's so cold down here." She spun. Empty aisle. A bag of chips on the middle shelf swayed once, gently, as though something invisible had brushed past it and kept going. She walked faster toward the register. The voice followed, now from the right side, softer, more pleading. "Mommy, the dark keeps moving. It touches me." Harlan still hadn't blinked. A single tear, thick, black, tar-like, rolled down his cheek in a slow zigzag. When it reached the counter, it didn't spread. It sat there quivering, then slowly sank into the wood like it was being absorbed. Sarah slapped the money down. "Keep the change." She turned toward the door. Every light in the store died at once. Absolute black. No red exit sign, no moonlight through the windows, nothing. Then, from Beneath the floor ran a child's giggle, high, wet, bubbling up through water or blood or something thicker. The giggle stretched into a long, gurgling sigh. Something small and cold wrapped around her ankle. Not fingers. Not exactly. It felt like dozens of tiny, needle-sharp points. Teeth. Barbs. Pressing in gently, testing the skin, deciding how much pressure to use. Sarah screamed and kicked. The grip tightened, just enough to sting, then released all at once. She stumbled forward, yanked the door open, burst into the night air. Behind her, the lights snapped back on with a loud electrical pop. Through the glass, she saw Harlan standing in the same spot. But now a child stood beside him. No more than 4 feet tall, barefoot, hair long and matted, clinging wetly to its shoulders. The child's skin was the color of wet newspaper. It lifted one hand slowly, and waved. Its fingers bent backward at the second knuckle. All of them, in perfect unison, like joints made of rubber. Sarah dove into her car, slammed the locks, floored it. She drove until sunrise, painted the sky pink. She pulled into the first rest stop, sat in the parking lot with the engine running, shaking. Years later, she still cannot stand complete silence. She keeps white noise machines in every room. Fans, rain apps, static channels turned loud. Because in the moments when the sound cuts out, when the fan pauses to change direction, when the music ends, she hears it again. Closer every time. "Mommy, I found the stairs. I'm coming up now." Story 3. The Thing Under the Floor, doubled length. Maria Lopez didn't believe in ghost stories. She believed in missing persons files, security camera timestamps, last known locations, and lately too many of those files ended at the same coordinates, Route 7 fuel stop. She parked a quarter-mile down the highway one foggy night, engine off, windows cracked just enough to hear. Binoculars steady. She'd read every report twice. 12 disappearances in 18 months. Vehicles found with keys in the ignition, engines cold, driver's side doors open. Cash payments logged on the pump, always an exact change. No bodies, no witnesses. At 12:47 a.m., a semi pulled in. The driver, Tom, according to the side of the trailer, climbed down, stretched, walked inside. Maria timed it on her watch. 5 minutes, 10, 15, 20. No one came out. She crossed the lot on foot, boots silent on cracked concrete. The air tasted metallic, old pennies mixed with wet soil after rain. The bell above the door gave one choking clank, then nothing. "Police," she said low and firm, hand resting on the Glock. Harlan raised both palms slowly. His skin looked waxy, almost translucent under the flickering bulb. Thin blue veins crawled beneath the surface like roots. "Ain't nobody here but me," he said. Maria heard it then, not scratching, breathing, deep, slow, wet inhalations coming up through the floorboards. Not one set of lungs, many, small openings sucking air in ragged chorus. She moved toward the storeroom door. Harlan stepped sideways to block her. "Don't," he said. His voice cracked on the word. She shoved past, kicked the door open. Darkness inside. Then her flashlight beam caught shapes. Pale, hunched figures pressed shoulder to shoulder against the far wall. Their eyes reflected the light like animals in headlights. Their mouths moved constantly, iron to sound, just silent, frantic motion. Every single one of them was clawing downward at the floorboards in perfect unison. Nails already bloody, fingertips shredded to the bone. The wood buckled in the center of the room. A crack split open, in a fast, violent, like the floor had been waiting for permission. Blackness poured upward. Not smoke, not shadow. Something thicker, something that glistened wetly under the flashlight beam. Long, segmented limbs unfolded. Too many joints, bending and unbending in sequences that hurt to watch. Eyes appeared across the mass. Dozens of red, unblinking points scattered randomly, all staring at her at once. The thing made a sound like 1,000 throats clearing wet phlegm at the same moment. Maria fired. 3 shots. Each muzzle flash lit the creature in stark white strobes. Bullets hit soft tissue that parted, then closed again, rippling like water. The thing lunged. One limb, slick, cold, pulsing, wrapped around her ankle and yanked. She hit the floor hard. Boards cracked beneath her spine. The breathing under the floor grew louder, excited, hungry. Harlan appeared in the doorway, face slack, eyes empty. "I fed it strangers," he whispered, "so it wouldn't take the town. One every few months. Just enough. But it's never enough." Maria kicked free, scrambled backward. The thing reared. A vertical slit opened in what might have been its face, lined edge to edge with small, writhing tongues that tasted the air. She fired until the slide locked empty. Sirens finally screamed closer. She stumbled outside, collapsed against her cruiser. Backup arrived in force. They breached the storeroom. Empty. No people, no creature. Just a perfect circle of claw marks, gouged into the concrete, deep enough to show a rebar underneath. And in the very center of the circle, a single handprint, adult-sized, burned black into the floor, edges still smoking, still giving off faint heat. The station was bulldozed 2 weeks later, the ground leveled. A new billboard went up advertising a truck stop 30 miles east. But on nights when thick fog rolls across the highway, the kind that muffles sound and turns headlights into soft halos, long-haul drivers still report the same thing: a single pump standing alone in an empty field where nothing should be. Its hose lies coiled on the ground. Slowly, deliberately, it uncoils, then coils again. Like something underneath is still breathing, still waiting, still measuring how many steps it takes to reach the next lonely traveler who stops.